Hello, cozies. So we're going to go on another ghost tour. So I can't wait to show you guys.
If I can get a passage through here. The only thing was I was like, I hope they're not going anywhere important, but they didn't have their lights on. Oh, yeah, right. All right, I'm gonna get up to the head of the pack here.
I know, I'm like, do I follow? There we go.
All right. So this home is the Eamon home, built for Mrs. Eamon and her family by her son George, her son Edwin, who was a past mayor of Oroville. And the story, I should also mention that Mrs. Eamon started the Eamon Olive Company. So before the Eamon Olive Company, processing olives to make them edible was kind of just something you read about in the biblical times, but people just used them for olive oil. And then Mrs. Eamon was nearly bankrupt. She had nothing but an olive grove out here in California given to her as a consolation prize for losing everything. And she went to a professor at UC Berkeley and said, what else other than olive oil can I do with these trees? And so he said you can process them and use them to do what people used to do far back a long time ago and make olives edible. They probably still in the biblical times would not have tasted the same as they do today. So Mrs. Eamon did not invent the edible olive, but she perfected the black ripe olive that we have today. So we have Mrs. Eamon to thank for having canned olives at our dinner table, well, you know, in our kitchens. And it's interesting that this kind of history is just hidden right here in the middle of downtown Oroville. So the Eamon home was built in 1911. Edwin's wife was named Charlotte, and they had two children, George and Marion, whose bedrooms are upstairs. And of course, his famous mother, Frida Eamon, the mother of the ripe olive industry. In 1919, tragedy struck, known as the Dinner Party Massacres. So this is kind of a hot button topic with the Historical Society who owns this property. I brought it up, I'd like to talk about the Dinner Party Massacres, and they said, no, we can't talk about that, it's bad press. But it's so long ago, and by the end of this, you'll see there's a happier ending to this. In 1919, 200 people died in Butte County alone. The cause was a bad batch of olives from the Eamon plant just down Lincoln. 200 people in a weekend. Horrified by the incident, Frida vowed it would never happen again, and she was right. Her company led the push to sanitary environments in packing plants across the nation. Still, Frida's granddaughter Marion said that the family, especially Frida, could never come to terms with the role that their family business played in this dark chapter of Butte County history. And so it's because of this that it's kind of believed that this house is, she had a home in Oakland, and she had a home up here. She stayed in this house during the olive season. So she oversaw her business up here, but then during the summer she went back down to Oakland. So it's kind of believed that this house is haunted in a Winchester Mystery Mansion kind of way, because of all of the 200 people who had died of botulism because of Mrs. Eamon's plant. And so, there's one last thing. Oh, there's actually another interesting connection that I did share during the Olive Festival with the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, and that's that Frida Eamon, oh, one second. Frida Eamon was actually good friends with Mrs. Winchester, our very superstitious friend from San Jose. And they were both suffragettes, a part of the suffragette movement. And I believe that Mrs. Winchester actually stayed a few times here in this home, at least long enough to have tea and attend meetings. And so they were so close, in fact, Mrs. Winchester, and if any of you have seen her house, she has many stairs. She was quite an inventor herself for interior design. Mrs. Winchester created these little dustbuster corners to make it so that the many stairs in the Winchester house did not have to be cleaned too diligently because dust was kept out of the corners. So it was just one good wipe on the corner and then you're good to go on to the next one. And because of that, in these stairs in this home, we have that as well. And I imagine that was probably something that was added when Mrs. Winchester came here, had tea, and said, oh, well, you know, well, I think that this was actually something, that Mrs. Eamon probably saw in the Winchester house and wanted over here and got the idea from Mrs. Winchester. So now I'm going to send you guys through the Eamon home, and I'm going to send you in groups of around 10, so stick close to your guys' groups, whoever you want to go through the house with together, and I'll start counting people off and breaking up the groups.
I love it. They have beautiful China. We do tea parties here. Tea parties here.
Gorgeous.
This is
It's kind of like modern stuff on that table.
yeah.
We got our own fur bag, this is great.
Yeah.
Give me a hug.
Oh,
To get her.
I know.
I want to see this beautiful. This is the most beautiful pianos ever. Here's the phone. This is a huge fireplace. Exorcist pearls.
I got my photo there. You understand?
And this
I
is
know.
This is interference.
no.
Oh,
This is, but
I love
if
it.
you could see everything, you could see the family photos. Like here's one here.
that's my
And here
bestie.
was the books. Looking at the historical books.
My pictures didn't come out very good.
How are you?
So we just got out of the M house, and if you listen in the background, you'll hear people getting spooked from the haunted house.
All right, another one. Oops, testing. Sorry, it takes a second for my mic to do that. All right. Can everybody hear me? All right. So one weekend in September of 1994, with Halloween more than a month away, a series of bizarre events haunted Oroville and overwhelmed our police department. Calls poured in to the dispatch reporting strange activity, phantom sightings, and alien encounters. Calls then came in about a woman in white in a white gown dancing on the railroad overpass. Following the tracks to the old depot, but officers could find no trace of the woman. She was last seen drifting west down High Street, where she apparently vanished. Quote, perhaps the lady in white was a sign, a psychic warning to residents in the area. The Mercury Register theorized because at 9 p.m., residents on at the High Street apartments were stalked by the specter of a man wielding a boulder. He was reportedly trying to strike people with it. However, police failed to find the man, who also disappeared into the shadows on 5th Avenue. Another odd sighting from the chaotic night, or these chaotic 2 nights, was that of a haunt wearing a tan hat and coat, stabbing a fence with a large knife. By dawn Sunday morning, Oroville was seemingly intact, and the police were back on their regular beats. The darkness had passed. So now from here, we're going to go to the back of the Masons building.